say, and I think you should take my comment into consideration. The comment that was made on page 5 by me regarding the exterior of the village of Breckenridge. It's always good to see an update of an existing building. We appreciate the investment. What I said, we appreciate the capital investment. And then on page 7, I'm quoted as saying the modular projects in Edwards look better than Breckenridge's Justice Center. That's not what I said. I said that they don't look as good as the ones at the Justice Center. And that's consistent with my comment at the end where I said your Edwards housing project is not appropriate for Breckenridge. So if we can make those 2 changes, I would appreciate it.
Are there any other comments on the minutes?
I've done.
Okay, with those changes, then the minutes are approved. Are there any changes to the agenda, Chris?
Yes, following our, I guess, public comment on historic preservation issues, our town attorney, Keely Ambrose is here, and she's kind of introduced herself, also former planning commissioner, and then just kind of go over some, I guess, norms and other issues but yeah, mainly an intro before we get into our scheduled agenda items.
Okay. Do you want to come to the?
We're going to do the public comment on historic preservation
okay.
first. And then,
All right.
Yeah.
All right. At this point, I'm going to open the meeting to public comment on historic preservation issues that are not on the agenda this evening. As part of a certified local government, we are asked to take public comment on historic preservation issues in the community. With that, I will open the meeting to any public comment. Please raise your hand with the icon at the bottom of your screen or press *9 if you are attending the meeting by phone, and then *6 to unmute yourself. Is there anybody who wishes to comment?
No hands raised.
Thank you. Okay. Keely.
Good afternoon or evening, Planning Commission. My name is Keely Ambrose. I am the new town attorney. I was also on Planning Commission with most of you, so hello again. Things changed rapidly this year, but I couldn't be happier to be serving our community in a slightly different capacity. But I just wanted to introduce myself to you all. I do plan on coming. I will probably attend a few meetings over the course of the year. And I also want to make myself available to you all if you have questions about procedure in particular, or conflicts of interest, anything like that. And I also do plan on coming and doing a training to all of the town's boards and commissions about sort of rules of procedure and order and things like conflicts of interest and stuff like that. So if you didn't know, I was previously the deputy county attorney for Summit County. I handled all of the county's land use matters, including advising all of their planning commissions. So I have lots of background with that. And then plus having sat where you sit, I think it's just great. And I thank all of you for what you do. And I know it's not always easy. And so again, please feel free to reach out if you have questions or concerns. And that's it.
Thank you, Keely. Okay. So let us move to our first item, the preliminary hearing on the Imperial Hotel, BGB parcel 4 SVC. Sorry, expanded this too much. BGB parcel 4 S3C 19, oh, gosh, this is really bad. Oh, there. Okay, thank you. Parcel 4 in Cucumber Gulch Preserve Preventative Maintenance Area variance, Class A preliminary hearing PL 2024-0475.
Good evening, Vice Chair and Commissioners. I'm Sarah Crump, Planner 3 for the Town of Breckenridge. Before you this evening, we have the Imperial Hotel and Private Residences, Parcel 4, and a variance request for the preventative maintenance area, part of the Cucumber Gulch Preserve, an outlier surrounding that preserve. This proposal is pursuant to the development agreement between the Town of Breckenridge and Breckenridge Grand Vacations, and was contemplated in that approved development agreement from earlier this year, April 9th, 2024. The proposal is to construct a mixed-use hotel development with 36 hotel units, 58 condominium units. 75 of those will have lock-off, with 75 additional lock-offs. A portion of those will be whole ownership units with lock-offs, and then a separate fraction will be fractional ownership with lock-offs. The development also has 9 townhome units, proposed commercial amenities for guests, such as hot tubs, pools, public restaurant and bar, arcade, theaters, outdoor flexible turf space, as well as provided office space for Vail Summit Resorts, heretofore referred to as VSRI. Again, they're also proposing space for the Breckenridge Outdoor Education Center. And all of this will have required parking in an underground parking garage. To locate the project, we're on Ski Hill Road at 1599 Ski Hill Road. This is the current site of the Ski Resort Administration Building. It's a benched site that was previously disturbed for construction of Ski Hill Road and for the administration building. It's located just directly south of One Ski Hill Place and north of the Boulder Ridge and 4 O'Clock subdivisions. Tonight, we will discuss the proposed project, the current point analysis that staff recommends, and we have questions for the commissioners as we go through. And then there'll be an opportunity for commissioner questions of staff and the applicant and public comment at the end. So this project is in Land Use District 39. The project does meet the approved land use district requirements for residential and commercial uses. I'll briefly explain, along with the land use policies, policy 2, the requirements for the PMA variance request. Jump around to the correct page here. So this project, briefly, in line with the East Peak Hotel, which was formerly proposed at the site, is proposing similar variance requests for the preventative maintenance area surrounding Cucumber Gulch. They're asking for an expansion of the existing Peak 8 detention area, which is located here on the site plan. And they're going to propose expansion of that detention area, as well as construction of new groundwater discharge outlet and 2 new discharge outlets associated with runoff from the ski area. So you can see these new proposed drainage outlets will collect runoff from the ski area and be diverted into this detention pond here. The existing water quality treatment area that's on Peak 8 was always contemplated and contemplated for that a building of this size would be constructed at this site, and that water quality treatment facility was previously constructed at a size that would be appropriate for a building on this site. They're requesting the expansion for the runoff diversion from the ski area, and not water that would be runoff from the parking lots or rooftop or the drive aisles. Those would be diverted to this water quality area that exists already to the north. PMA variances have been granted in the previous applications for construction of all the developments on Peak 7 and 8 formerly. It's not a new or unique request. This area is owned by the town of Breckenridge, and it has a drainage easement specifically for these developments, and was always contemplated as such by the town. Regulations for the PMA do offer relief procedures, if followed by the applicant, to allow for disturbance within the PMA. And those are outlined in the report. Along with these, with this proposal, the applicant will follow regular standards and best practices for site disturbance. Each of these new discharge points will have sediment catching sumps in order to collect the heavy materials that may come off in the runoff. And they are not proposed to have any degrading impacts on the PMA or the Cucumber Gulch. So we will be asking the commission tonight if you agree with the variance to the regulations of the PMA according to this proposal. To density, under policy 3. This project has an allowed buildable density of 220 SFEs. This includes the 74.2 SFEs, which were transferred to the site from the gondola lot master plan. This master plan amendment was previously approved by this commission earlier this year. The additional SFEs were placed on the Peak 7 and 8 master plan area, specifically on this planning area B for this hotel. These 74.2 SFEs, they can be used for any use, not just residential or commercial, they're flexible. So allowed density is up to 127.6 SFEs of residential, 11 SFEs of commercial, 7.2 SFEs of guest services, and 74.2 SFEs, again, for any use. This project is proposing a total of 218.82 SFEs, or the equivalent of 269,316 square feet. The amenities proposed, up to 600% of the amount required, don't count towards density. So that total amount proposed is actually 30,621 square feet. And that is only the overage of the 600% required is reflected in the density. So 1.26 SFEs of amenity overage in that proposed density. The development agreement waived the requirement to count parking as density. So that floor area is also not included as density. But when amenities and parking are included, the gross floor area square footage will be 408,966 square feet. We'll move on to policy 5, architectural compatibility. This project is obviously a very large hotel, but in order to break up that large feeling, they have placed the rows of townhomes almost appear as separate structures in front of the main building, as well as to the southeast in the rear. The building has a proposed stone veneer at the base. This sort of grounds the building, and then vertical lighter colored siding as the height of the building increases, which draws the eye up and gives a lighter appearance to those upper floors. The massing is also broken up with these wider but low gabled roofs. The rear portion that you'll see from the ski area, the south elevation, will have 3 separate masses broken up again by those shallow gable roofs. The master plan in this case calls for a special type of architecture, transitional and between rustic and contemporary. Staff feels that the proposed materials, the stone veneer and the natural wood siding, paired with these more contemporary looking roof structures and assemblies, does meet that requirement for transitional architecture between rustic and contemporary. We'll be asking for the commission's input on that tonight, as well as the variation of roof forms throughout the structure. And there's the shed canopy roof that will be an overpass, or cars will drive under there for the entryway. This a very interesting tower that is reminiscent of a more rustic hotel with a mansard roof with gable extensions. And then the, again, shallow gables lend towards a more contemporary feel for the building. We do feel that this building, the proposed colors and architecture blend nicely with the existing One Ski Hill Place and Grand Colorado Lodge, which are also on Peak 8 and adjacent to this proposal. Regarding building height under policy 6, this project has a 5-story recommendation under the land use guidelines that equals 62 feet in height. They're allowed to go above that to an extent with the application of negative points, as long as they do not exceed the overall height of the One Ski Hill Place east cross gable. So this structure, the highest portion was measured by staff at 72 feet and 11 inches. That's more than a half story, but less than 1 story greater than the recommended height. So that warrants negative 10 points. And then there is a ridge line, which is greater than 50 feet in length, which warrants an additional negative 1 point. But the overall structure is proposed to be just beneath the overall height of the east cross gable measurement for One Ski Hill Place. So staff does find that the height meets the intent of the master plan and the land use guidelines and development code requirements. Again, as was mentioned previously, this site was formerly benched and excavated for construction of Ski Hill Road and the administration building that currently exists there. So quite a bit of excavation work for this proposal, as well as a series of retaining walls leading up to the ski area will be required in order to make this project successful. The development agreement waived any negative points allowed for under policy 7. So the retaining walls won't get negative points, but we can view their proposed lengths and locations and the materiality, which includes stone veneer and then also a stamped and carved faux stone concrete. This portion, the stamped concrete, will be this rear wall against the ski slope. And then the other portions will have stone veneer. Also under policy 7, a large discussion during the development agreement work sessions with the town council were to determine the appropriate setbacks or step downs for the east elevation of the building as it abuts the 4 O'Clock Run subdivision, as well as this Boulder Ridge subdivision, which are single family homes. It was found during these work sessions that it was more important to have a greater setback distance than for the building to step down on this edge. So the applicant has met the proposed setbacks that were determined within that work session. with the town council. The master plan also says that maximizing the eastern buffer distance to these parcels is more important than designing a building to step down to the east. I'm going to, in the interest of time, just kind of move along on policies that have point assignments or have more serious discussion. Jumping to snow removal and storage under policy 13R, the applicant's proposing 23,492 square feet of hard surface. That's shown in purple on this diagram. That area will need to be hand shoveled or plowed with manual labor for snow removal, and they're required to provide 25% or 5,873 square feet of snow storage for that area. So that's shown in the light blue on the plans, and they are meeting that requirement. We'll talk more about proposed snow melt systems in just a minute. Staff has assigned a positive 1 point for the interior allocation of trash and recycling area. There'll be a central trash location in the west side of the hotel. And then for the townhomes, there will be additional trash collection facilities centralized for those locations, which will be collected by staff and moved to this area for refuse collection. Again, that's worth positive 1 point. Discussing internal and external circulation. The project will have 2 curb cuts off of Ski Hill Road. And they're in discussions with the engineering department regarding the location of those and the requirements along Ski Hill Road to accommodate that. The westernmost entrance will be exclusively, or will be for both deliveries and for guests arriving. The southern, plan south, east on on the globe. This entrance will be for exclusively for guests. So the idea will be that delivery trucks will turn in to the left and go directly to the loading area. They are getting a variance for delivery vehicles to have a backing motion onto Ski Hill Road. Upon first arrival, guests will also come in this entrance, but they'll be directed to go into the through the canopy to check in. And after they've completed the check-in process, when they return again, guests will be able to come in this eastern entrance and go directly into the garages, and they won't have to complete this circular through the canopy except on the first time. The applicant's also proposing some significant pedestrian and skier access easements and improved access easements for the public and for the single family subdivision to the south. There will be a ski back between the townhomes and the larger building going from west to east. And then there will be another public and maintained access with staircase and sidewalks and pathways for skiers and pedestrians from Ski Hill Road coming this way. This access easement was also proposed with the East Peak Hotel, but was never completed, obviously. And so we're eligible for positive 3 points under policy 16R. All of the parking that is required for the project will be located in the underground parking decks. There are 3 levels. 6 spaces are proposed. That's I believe 55 spaces more than required. The applicant is required to provide 35 spaces that are dedicated to use by on-site Vail Resorts employees, and another 6 accessible ADA spaces that are exclusively for use by the Breckenridge Outdoor Education Center. And those will have access to an elevator and that'll take them to the BOEC space in the interior, and as well as to the on-snow access.
Can you show us where those spaces are?
They're on this north side. I think it's these. Maybe on the second level. I thought they were delineated here. I may have the applicant speak to that. But you're right, I'm not seeing specifically ADA spaces called out.
Thank you.
But that is a requirement of the development agreement, so they will have to meet it. The project proposes an interior loading dock for deliveries here along this service entry. That is eligible for positive 2 points under policy 19R. And staff has assigned those points. The applicant wasn't previously requesting any positive points for landscaping, but I did want to touch on landscaping because they could be eligible for that in the future. They're proposing 189 newly planted trees and shrubs. And they'll all be of native or compatible species for the high alpine environment. It's called out that they will be maintaining the existing tree buffer and adding to that along this eastern edge in order to maintain a good buffer and barrier between these existing single-family homes on this eastern edge. Moving on to policy 24, social community. The applicant is asking for a few waivers and variances regarding employee generation. As everybody's familiar, employee generation means that any new development or change of use that would generate a new employee under the development code requires that the applicant offset that with employee housing, 350 square feet per employee generated, and they must mitigate 35% of employees generated. So find the correct page, sorry. The applicant is asking for some waivers to the development codes employee generation rates. They are locked into the old employee generation rates, which were in the code prior to some 2024 code changes. These generation rates are based on a Nexus study that was completed for the town of Vale, and the town of Breckenridge adopted them at the time, but has since completed our own Nexus study. And so we have updated those rates for ourselves, but the applicant is locked into the old rates. Table of those is in the packet for your reference, but they're asking for some waivers, which is allowed in the code if the applicant can provide evidence that they will be supplying fewer employees for the specified use. We have waived those points in the or those requirements in the past. They are asking for a reduced generation rate for whole ownership condos, down from 0.6 employee per room to 0.33 employee per unit. They're asking for a rate of 0 for retail market space that's found in the main level of the development. They're also asking for a reduction for the lobby bar, the lower speakeasy bar, and the private dining room. Staff feels that the reduction rate for the whole ownership condos is warranted. The changeover for those is likely going to be far less than condos, which are not whole ownership or are proposed to be fractional ownership, and they're going to have more regular changeover and require more housekeeping services. The 0.33 employee generation for those whole ownership condos is consistent with what the applicant states is their employment level at their existing properties, also on Peak 8 at a similar level of service. So staff is recommending that we go with their proposed rate of 0.33 for the whole ownership condos. Staff also sees that it's probable that for the restaurant, bar, the lobby bar, speakeasy bar, and private dining room, that there should be some flexibility for those uses as well. We have granted waivers in the past for example, the tap house, for areas that serve alcohol but not food service. And it's probably likely that the hotel will, when those areas, the speakeasy, for example, or the demonstration kitchen and restaurant, private restaurant, dining room, they'll be duly employing the same hotel employees for the upper level as they would when those areas are open. So staff is supportive of that recommendation, and again, it's based on the uses and employee generation in their other hotels also on Peak 8. Staff does not agree with the request for 0 employees generated for the retail market. We don't want to set a precedent that a retail area could have 0 employees if it's space that's allocated to be retail or commercial use. So I want to point this out on the correct page. Sorry, I feel like I'm missing a page here. This one? Oh, it's blue. I was looking for pink. Sorry. This is the market location, the retail market. We just don't believe that that would have 0 generation, a rate of 0. Even if it were operated by circulation or front desk employees, they would have to monitor this area. It also has an interior hallway entrance and an exterior entrance to the outside. Again, staff doesn't want to set precedent that we would have retail space with a 0 generation rate. So if you go with the staff recommended employee generation rate, this would result in approximately 199 employees, 21 fewer than if you were to use the code generated rate. However, this is still less than the proposed employee housing that the applicant will be providing on the Entrada site. That is a separate application, but you will have time to review it at a later date. But it is, the generation is within the floor area that they've said that they would provide on Entrada. Any overage that they provide on Entrada cannot be banked or used for any other development projects at a later time, so it would just be in excess. So we'll ask if the commission agrees with the staff recommended generation rates. Also under policy 24, the applicant is eligible for positive points for providing space for social services. This was explicitly called out in the development agreement that the space provided for the BOEC must be 1,500 square feet or more, but it was also explicitly stated that that would be eligible for positive points. So the applicant is providing over 1,600 square feet for the BOEC, as well as access to the outdoor aquatics facilities and a very generous lease rate of $1 per year for 50 years for the BOEC to use these facilities. So staff believes that the space provided, as well as the use of the amenities, does qualify for positive 4 points. The proposal also includes an electric shuttle system. This is eligible for positive 4 points under 25R transit. And so staff has assigned those. We'll jump down to energy conservation and policy 33A and 33R. Gas fireplaces are limited under policy 33A to 3 per unit. And there's a total of 103 divisible residential units and 71 gas fireplaces proposed, so they meet that requirement. They're not proposing any outdoor shared common fireplaces, but they will have 3 interior gas fireplaces in the lobby, restaurant, and common areas. They're proposing 1,152 square feet of heated outdoor pools. These will be, these warrant -3 points under the Development Code Policy 33R. That is -1 point for the first 101 to 500 square feet, and then an additional -point for every increment of 500 square feet added on to that. So -3 points assigned under Policy 33 for the pools. And then the project is proposing 13,200 square feet of heated outdoor space. A portion of this, the applicant is requesting be exempt from both the Renewable Energy Mitigation Program, also known as REMP, and also they're asking for exemption for points under Policy 33R. So this is the very light blue portion on this western edge. This will be the main connection point for pedestrians through the site to any transit options on the north or to the west, such as the gondola or the bus stop, which will be moved this direction. It'll also be the entrance point to the snow for all guests and for BOEC participants. The development agreement gives deference to the building department and staff to consider exemptions for REMP and exemptions for Policy 33R in this case. And so staff recommends that this area be exempt from Policy 33R. There are 2 distinguishable policies, though. One is in the building code and one is in the development code. And so there are other areas the applicant is proposing for heated snow melt, but staff doesn't believe that those should be exempt from Policy 33R. And they do exceed 5,000 square feet, that non-exempt area, and it would be eligible for -9 points under the development code. So we've assigned -9 points.
Sarah, if I could
additional to
just
get paid there.
maybe just have a little clarification on that. The light blue area, the reason staff supports that is because under Policy 33R, we can provide an exception for high traffic pedestrian areas. And we feel that that is justified for that area. So that's the reason we've supported it. We're not necessarily supportive of the other areas, which, for example, some of the egress points on the east side of the building that don't necessarily meet that same threshold in terms of high traffic.
Thank you, Mark. Along with the snow melt system, in tandem with that, the applicant has provided information on their proposed integrated weather system that will be connected to the snow melt system. It's the Pro Vantage 2, I believe. A brochure was included in your materials regarding the benefits of using this. Basically, it detects using barometric pressure when a storm will be arriving. It adjusts the snow melt heat system to accommodate the storm prior to its arrival so that it's not working as it turns on efficiently early and then turns off efficiently after the storm so that it's not working additionally when it's not needed. The applicant has provided information for the use of this product at its other facilities, and it demonstrates an energy savings. Staff is recommending +4 points for the installation of this program under Policy 33R. There's a section where other systems can be supplemented for positive points if they produce genuine energy savings. We still would like to have more research and conference with the sustainability department on this, but based on this preliminary data, staff would recommend +4 points for this product, and we'll ask if the commission agrees at the end. Finally, under Policy 47, the applicant is proposing the installation of a fence for skier protection and safety. This will be on the south edge near the ski area. It'll be a 2-foot constructed retaining wall and topped with a steel mesh fence. This provides skier safety so people aren't skiing up to the wall and then potential for falling over the wall. It also will be a guide for snow plowing equipment on the groomed area. And the steel mesh will allow for visibility between the fence and the development. This does meet policy 47 requirements for fencing along ski areas, which are allowed to be steel. And so staff has recommends approval of this fence along the rear ski area. And to summarize, thank you for bearing with me through this very long report. I will just quickly go over the point analysis as staff recommends, and then there are 7 questions that staff has for the commission at the end. Staff is recommending under policy 6, -10 for building height. Also under policy 6, -1 for an unbroken ridge line greater than 50 feet in length. Under policy 33R, staff is recommending -9 for the heated paving greater than 5,000 square feet, and -3 for pools and spas of 1,152 square feet. For positive points, staff is recommending +1 point under 15R for the integration of the trash facility into the main structure. Under policy 16, we're recommending +3 for the improved skier and pedestrian access easement. Under parking, +4 for including all of the required parking out of public view underground. Under policy 19R, +2 for the loading facility that is will be separated from guests and out of view underground. Under policy 24, social community, +4 for providing the allocated area for the BOEC, as well as access to the outdoor aquatic facilities. And +4 under policy 25 for providing the all-electric shuttle. And finally, +4 under energy conservation is recommended for the Davis Vantage Pro 2 weather monitoring system. That's a total of -23 and a total of +22 for a overall score of -1 at this time. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer questions that you may have.
If I could just mention too that, and maybe Sarah hit on this and I missed, but we have Shannon and Kendra from our engineering division here. If there's any specific questions regarding drainage, the detention facilities or traffic flow, things like that.
Thank you, Sarah. That was a difficult but very detailed presentation. We appreciate it. At this point, I'm going to turn to Planning Commission questions for staff. Let's start with Alan.
Thanks, Chair, and Sarah, great job as always. Questions, well, one is a recommendation. It would be nice to see maybe for the next hearing elevations from the rear, what you call the rear ski adjacent side of the project, and just how it integrates with the ski area. How smooth that will be with, those are 2 learning areas, and, what the flow would be like from the lifts and such, and how much room there is at the base of the lifts. Because I know right now it's a very tricky area getting down to the admin buildings and such. Also, it'd be nice to see, in terms of employee generation rates, what the applicants' required employee, what their generation rates would be with the new code. It might be easier, since we adjusted some things, it might be easier make it easier for us to grant the waiver if the required number was lower anyway with the new code.
So I can answer that for you right now.
Oh, okay, great.
That's 193 under the new code is the generation rate. So it is
Okay.
less than what the applicant is proposing.
Great. Okay. Well, that makes it, that we can definitely take that into our decision for that. Thank you. Just curious, well, I'll save that for the applicant. Never mind. What is there any precedent that any kind of relatable precedent for granting +4 points for the BOEC space and amenity access?
So previous precedent includes allocated space for childcare facilities as well as housing on site at the CMC. Those applications have received positive 4 points for social services under policy 24 RC.
Okay.
I'm not aware of anything specific like a nonprofit space. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if Chris can remember if the FERC received points under that. It was a town project, so maybe not.
Possibly. I can come back to that, Alan. I'll look through our sheet real quick.
But you're right, there's
Okay.
not a specific
Okay. Well, you gave a
item
couple of
that's
good
directly
examples.
to this.
Yeah, you gave a couple. And then the positive 4 points for the snow melt monitoring system. I'm not going to add all the other names to it. How did you guys decide on that number of points for that?
So that part of the development code only allows for, it's either no points or positive 4.
Okay.
Or you could get -4 if you're proposing something very energy inefficient. But there's
Got
no
it.
flexibility in that section. Yeah.
Okay.
We want to have our sustainability division weigh in, but Jesse Burley did look at it, kind of quickly and is aware of this technology, and I think is generally fairly positive on it, but she wants to still just kind of wade through the data, but her initial
Okay.
reaction to it was positive.
Great. Okay. That's all I have. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Ellen. Elaine?
Thanks, Sarah and Susan. I have a couple questions. First one has to do with the restoring vegetation, having to do with the development standard 11C. It talks about like it has to be restored in a manner that provides similar biological functions. And it doesn't seem like we have a lot of details on those retention ponds. As far as like, it says there's going to be seeds planted. I guess to me, things take a long time to grow. So is that set in stone? Is that standard what we do? Is that it just feels like the requirement's a little stronger than what they're proposing.
Yeah, I guess like our expectation would be similar to the other variances we granted, but each one of the buildings, the 3 BGV buildings, one skill place, and then also the parking structure that's adjacent to the gulch, all had a similar variance. So really this language is kind of borrowed from those previous ones to keep it consistent. And so I think the expectation would be kind of what we've seen previously for, revegetation and implementation of the detention facilities. So you're right, that maybe sounds a little strong relative to like what has been installed, but I think the expectation is just kind of continuing what we've seen up there. And then also, I guess there's been the variances on Peak 7, those detention facilities that you can see from the gondola just down from the turn station there.
So they've just seeded and not planted
Seeded.
bushes or.
They've seeded and made sure that the vegetation is grown in, and then they've also had to do weed control absent using any kind of herbicide that comply with it. So the ski area every summer has to contract and keep up with weed mitigation for both the water quality and detention, as well as actually the installation of the gondola, which in certain locations is very complex because of the wetlands, where you want to obviously not tread on the really vulnerable areas, but it's very important to not let invasive species take root in there. So that's been a very concerted effort that Open Space manages. And previously, when I worked in open space from 2010 to 2015, I was involved in working with the ski area to make sure that that was completed every summer. So you're right that the vegetation part maybe sounds less technical, but it's really ensuring that ongoing maintenance, that we're not kind of by having that site disturbance in there, like launching something that's to take over into the gulch.
Can you bring up the drawing that shows where the detention pond's gonna be? So I can't tell really the area there or what's already growing there, or there's a picture too that you have embedded in here, that you have a circle drawn that shows lots of trees.
This is an approximation. I don't know that it's exactly this area that the detention will be, but approximately here. And maybe a little further.
So it'll look similar to the one on the left there,
No, it won't be
industrial.
it won't be a like physical pond like this. It's like overflow, like a
So it'll have like a dam below it. Is that what you're saying? But most of that vegetation will be maintained there.
I don't think it will be as structured as what you're thinking or describing. It'll just be more of removal of soil from this area to accommodate additional discharge. But it won't be a physical structure like this one.
All right, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So it's the town's policy that just planting seeds based on is more than enough, and maintaining it. We don't require trees or shrubs or anything.
We don't, I mean, that's, I guess we're just
I just
being
feel like it's a
consistent.
really sensitive area and we're,
I mean, really, where this is located is kind of the uplands from the wetlands. And it's really trying to make sure the water it's discharging is kind of settled and filtered before it goes back into the wetlands. And whenever I get into the technical, I'm looking to Shannon and Kendra here that probably could describe it better. And being careful not to misstate, but this is kind of the buffer area before we get into the really sensitive area. So we're still trying to use as light of a hand as possible, and also the improve the water quality before it really is released into the wetland complex. So this is kind of our last line of defense. But with that said, we want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success by, not having a bunch of loose sediment and other things there. So I'm not sure if there's anything I'm missing. I'm looking and.
I can add that this area already exists. They're proposing an expansion of it. And this collection area will take on runoff that's coming from the ski area or groundwater. It's not going to take the more contaminated water that's runoff from the parking or driveways or roofs of the structure. That will be diverted into this existing pond, which has more water quality treatment mitigation than this
I
area.
guess
would.
it just would have been nice to see more of what their actual design is what I'm saying. And because that is very visible there.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is, similar to like getting building plans. Like right now they have kind of the design set, but really to get into the specifics of what they need for a building, it's kind of that next level of, I guess, design. And similar to when the previous building was approved with the same set of conditions and everything, like they would have had to get in and actually design the system to basically accommodate what they're promising under this development permit.
Okay, and then moving on to my next question. On the density, you have for commercial, you have 11 SFEs on the original agreement, and then now it's showing 17 for commercial. Didn't know if that is why that's bumped up.
So they're allowed to use those 74.2 SFEs for any use. So
Okay.
some of those were allocated to commercial.
All right. answered my sewer access question. We have precedent for, as far as the employee generation rates, for, this is an original agreement that they agreed to. Do we have any precedent for changing? I mean, it's pretty substantial, the amount of employee housing, I think that's going to be cut back, in my opinion.
Again,
So do we have any precedent for changing that after they've already agreed? I mean, they signed this, they agreed to it.
They agreed to the terms of the old code, which included a provision that they could supply their own evidence for adjusted generation rates. But I want to be clear, the proposal right now, even if they had to provide housing for all the employees, what they're proposing on the Entrada site exceeds that amount. So the adjustment that they're asking for is somewhat moot, but we don't want to set a precedent for relieving employee generation in certain areas where it's not warranted.
Okay. That's my
And,
question.
just to add a little bit on that, our code, the old code regarding employee generation said that, if, an applicant could challenge the numbers that are in the code.
Yeah, I read that.
And come in
Fair.
and do that. And we've done that before. I'm not sure if you were on the commission when we did that, but we did that with the High Side Brewery on Main Street. I know, like Mike and Mark were.
A recent work session for an espresso bar as well that requested a relief. Yeah.
Those are much
So there's
smaller
been some
operations.
precedents for that in the past. So they're looking for the same consideration.
And I guess really quickly, circling back to Alan's question about precedent for social services under 24R, the FERC or Soul Center, as it's now the working title, which is the food bank, and also Building Hope offices out near Vista Verde, received positive 8 points under that policy. So they received actually the highest threshold of points. And what's proposed today, or what we're recommending for the BOEC being a smaller facility, is the first tier of points, that +4.
Okay, and then I guess as far as the whole ownership, you're saying you're giving them a lower rate for that, but that's kind of something they've elected to do. Is that part of the consideration, or there's,
Yeah, they could elect to have a higher intensity use of the square footage, but then they would have higher generation rate. I mean, we're proposing to accept their generation standard based on the use that they're saying that it would be. I guess that would change if they decided at the end that they wanted them to all be fractional ownership.
okay. I think I'll let these guys talk now.
Elaine,
Sorry.
Matt.
I'm going to be really brief because I don't have much of a voice. I apologize. I just have a few things. One, kind of piggybacking off of Elaine's, is like, if you can cover the employee generation rate with your employee housing project, why ask for a exception?
I think they wanted to evidence, I mean, I can let the applicant speak to what they think, but in my mind, they probably want a true value that reflects what their resorts actually employ. And they've stated, I think this was in the report, their similar size, similar scale operation employs 160 full-time staff, which is fewer than what this is showing would be generated. So I think they're just looking to have fact-based evidence that the generation rate is true to what they're actually generating.
Okay, thank you. Another comment I have is regarding the building height. I see that the chimney bit of it exceeds or sticks up another approximately 8 feet above the existing roof line. And it might be just clarification, if you don't mind. And it says on the development code, in no instance shall any of these structures extend 10 feet over the specified maximum height limit. Would that maximum height limit be now the 72 instead of the 62?
So that actually is overruled by the development agreement, which in the master plan, which has a different absolute maximum height, which is the overall height of One Ski Hill Place, East Cross Gable. So that's the height in this instance is being governed by several different
Okay.
documents, and including the development agreement, the master plan, and the development code, as well as the land use guidelines. So we're looking at the absolute policy that can exceed, based on the master plan, the east cross gable of One Ski Hill Place. But then the relative policy defers to what's in the development code and the recommended land use guidelines, and that's the 62 feet. So then we would assess negative points based on the 62 feet. Maximum recommended height.
Okay.
Yeah, just clear as
So-
mud.
So the One Ski Hill roof line takes the precedent.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
their absolute maximum. Yeah.
Okay.
But to answer your question about the chimney, there's a separate policy within the development code, policy 6, that talks about building extensions like elevator shafts or chimneys,
Mhm.
and those can be up to 10 feet taller than the maximum building height.
Sure. Yeah, I was just concerned if it were already exceeding the maximum building height by 10 feet and you had another 8, then that's,
see.
yeah.
I guess to clarify, there's the recommended building height, if you will,
Okay.
under the relative policy, and then there's the maximum, which is the absolute portion. So you would actually have to go to the max allowed where you can't go over, and it's a slight technical difference.
Sure.
But good question, though.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. And then the water detention facilities, is any of the groundwater going to be pumped or is it all naturally flowing?
I'm gonna defer to the engineering department.
Just
and-
because I know like pumped
The
groundwater,
applicant.
it triggers like a permits and analysis and that sort of thing.
I think we'll need to defer to the applicant. We haven't
Okay.
received design plans on any of that yet,
Okay.
but I think you're thinking of construction groundwater mitigation.
Well, there's continuous groundwater pumping that it requires some permits through the state as well.
Yeah, and the groundwater situation was similar in the prior development that's been completed, so I think we'll be following that.
Gotcha. All right. And have you considered with that snow melt coming from the ski area, the PFAS coming into not to open up that can of worms, but into into that wetland complex with all that ski area runoff being directed into one concentrated location?
I don't think we're analyzing PFAS in the
Okay.
Gulch at the moment, but I could be wrong there.
We do a pretty
Because
extensive.
wax has a lot of it in it.
Yeah, I mean, we do monitor for general water quality throughout the Gulch and have a lot of test sites, and that's something that BOSAC reviews every year, and we have consultants that come and issue an annual report. Mark has probably sat through those more recently. Do you know what? Because occasionally we'll get some kind of trigger of chemical where we get concerned, and then we're trying to trace back where that's
Sure.
coming from. I'm trying to think
Yeah,
of the most recent.
I can't recall anything specific to that.
Okay.
Matt.
Okay. That's all I have at this time. Thanks.
Great. Very nice work, Sarah. Complex project. An easy one, the accessible parking count. I'd like some assurance that it's broken out between the overall building and the BOEC requirements. And really specific answer on that. Not just a general code number for the building in its entirety. And that may be for Bill, not you.
Yeah, we can require that for the next hearing.
Okay, great. The sensor on the heated pavement is given points under a quote, other design feature. Could you give us some precedent on other design features that obtained 4 positive points?
The only one that I'm aware of is a single family residence, which was doing something like a geothermal heat system. That wasn't contemplated in our code in another place, and I think the commission assigned positive 4 points for that heating system. I'm not aware of other instances where we've given positive points.
Yeah, that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. And I can, while you move on to other questions, I can dig into the points a little bit.
When I look at that brochure, it's a little weather station and a microprocessor.
Yeah, I think some of the other data they've provided, because they do utilize that system at some of the other properties, so they had kind of baseline data is what they're providing to our sustainability division to kind of dig through a little bit deeper.
It's still to be just it's a sensor and a reserved comment, but doesn't seem to be a lot to it. This kind of goes back to East Peak Aid and the head fake that the town received with respect to the amenity club, the day use club. And there's a lot of areas on the plans that are just color coded with general descriptions like amenity or back of house or something, but perhaps you have copies of the plans that detail that. But are we sort of overall assured of the program here, the corresponding development requirements, the employee use or the employee generation requirements and things like that? There's just large sections of the plans that are vague as to what occurs in those spaces.
A lot of the back of house and support areas, those employee generation rates would be included with the employees generated for the hotel rooms. That's incorporated into those generation rates, as well as the condo generation rates and like the general ones for each unit development. It's contemplated that you would have support and amenity areas that go along with that in those generation rates. I'll let the applicant speak to more of the programming and if there's more solidified information that they can provide beyond what's on the plans before you.
Okay, great. One example, I mean, there's plenty, but page 52, the ground floor at the automobile drop off, there's a big pink amenity space that's pretty prominent. Just curious what we're getting and if we're meeting the development code. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Mark?
Thanks, Sarah, for digging deeply into a very complex project here and trying to clarify it for us. Will the BSRI staff be moving their operations to some temporary facility while the building is being torn down? Is there going to be a trailer there?
There will be temporary structure or structures for those facilities during construction. We've asked that the applicant provide that information at a later hearing when they know more. So I don't have the specifics on that, but those are contemplated with this development and they were contemplated in the development agreement.
Okay, so we'll expect something likely on that site. The building is just over 409 square feet. Is that accurate?
49,000 gross,
49,000, yeah.
409.
409.
Yeah.
Does that include the 9 townhomes?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's everything.
Yeah.
The siding material noted in the DTJ drawings as wood tone natural fiber core siding. That's not an approved siding material.
We've asked for more information on that and they're gonna bring a sample and more information for a subsequent hearing.
The fiber cement is what we do.
Right.
And on the same note, the material of the build-up fascia has also not been, and as you know, that siding material goes with the caveat that we're going to use wood material in conjunction with it. So it'd be nice to have some samples and some specificity about what that is.
Yeah, they do plan to bring that back. I do want to just preface that they're contemplating some of these materials that you've mentioned. they do run against building codes for high rises once they get above a certain square footage, which require different materials. So there may be some requests in the future at a different hearing.
Yeah, previously on all the buildings there, once they got above whatever the building code threshold, they were not assessed negative points for those areas for utilizing building. It's essentially required by code.
Well, that's interesting. Like, once it's out of clear visibility,
Well, it's just.
we don't care, or it's up high enough that we don't have to worry about
No,
moisture, what,
no, it's just that it's something that if a building code requires a different type of material that is not possible to have wood in the past, we've allowed them to utilize another fireproof material to not paint someone in the corner and say there's no way around us. And that goes back to even before we had maybe more leniency with cementitious siding, because you know, the development of this area now stretches over 20 years, and we've had several changes to policy 5R related to non-natural materials over that time. So some of the earlier buildings, they would have been painted into a corner had we not had an allowance for, you know, some more hardened materials above a certain level to coincide with building code. That's just that's the
out.
precedent.
we'll sort that out in the
Mm.
future meeting. Okay. Going back to, the concerns at the other end of the table about the water quality issues. You say the approval by applicable regulatory agencies, must be obtained. I'm just sensitive to their concerns because where I worked in the Washington metropolitan area, we had federal EPA, we had Maryland EPA, we had Virginia EPA, and everybody was concerned about runoff going into the Potomac Bay, Potomac River, and ultimately into the Chesapeake Bay. So I'm used to seeing a very specific recipe for what needs to happen in terms of mitigating groundwater and runoff. And I'm not asking for anything. I'm just sensitive to that. And I think everybody would be a little bit more comfortable if we had some specificity about what they're going to do.
And there will be specific permits issued by the state agencies as well as Town of Breckenridge, but they are just not required at this hearing.
All right. Again, that's just what I'm used to. You referenced the pathways from Boulder Ridge and 4 O'Clock subdivision. The grade there is such that it's probably a one-way pathway. So perhaps you can ski down at a certain point, but you're putting your skis on your shoulder and walking up. And there's some provision in the pathway to have the grade such that that's not prohibitive.
They will not be changing the grade on once you cross the property line.
Mhm.
It'll be improved access. I think right now, if you, let's say you want to access the ski area or come back, you could take the stairway from Ski Hill Road and then walk uphill. It may be improved in that you could ski back this direction to your home if you live up here, but you're right. Once you get into this access easement, it is uphill towards those subdivisions, so you would probably be walking.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's narrower right now, probably from a ski access, obviously with no buildings there for the neighbors. They can kind of sheet flow and go over, kind of go whichever way is the most desirable back to their property. With constructing a building, it'll be funneled. And I think from, you know, talking to the neighbors, which I see there's several here tonight, I think this is one of the biggest concerns, that they had some legal access to basically come in and out of the ski area. You know, I know Mike had talked with Mike Dudek of BGV, had discussions with them But there may be more comments, from residents, but I know that's a very important thing is to maintain ski access to that neighborhood.
So we're talking about the access when the project's finally done, but I think it's also important to address the temporary access while the construction is going on, because you want to give them access, but you also want to keep those people safe from any construction activities, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that, maybe it isn't shown in the plans, and that's actually a good point, because I think that obviously have a controlled job site here. And that may be something, if there is a plan, to show like, for the several years it will take to build out, what's the plan for those people that have access kind of around it
Right.
and worked it out. But I think that is, actually a very good point.
Can you expand upon the issues regarding the left turn lane into the project that BGV doesn't want to build? You alluded to that, but there weren't any specifics so
It's-
that we can understand that.
It's kind of an ongoing discussion between the applicant and the engineering department. it- There are current code standards from the town require a left turn lane. Previous standards did not, for the East Peak 8 Hotel. So it's just an ongoing discussion, as was mentioned in the report.
Is it a cost issue? Is it a practicality issue where you don't have the
I think
space
it's
in
a
the right of way?
space limitation. I can let the applicant expand on why they, would rather not do that.
Right.
But it is an ongoing discussion. Nothing is determined at this time.
You alluded to the fact that the delivery trucks would have the backing motion off of Ski Hill Road. And it's not really clear. There's a little turnaround there. Does that mean that they will be able to stop and back into that space? Or are we talking about them backing out onto Ski Hill Road once they've made the delivery?
I think they've been given a variance or will be given a variance to back onto Ski Hill Road.
That was included in the
So
development agreement.
going in or coming out?
I'm unclear also what the circulation movement would be, but there is a provision in the development agreement that allows a backing movement onto Ski Hill Road, which goes against our standard code.
Because the site plan has got that little space in there where somebody could back into, which is probably why it's there.
It could be used by a vehicle of a certain size. I don't think you're going to get an 18-wheeler to make that turn. But again, we haven't seen any turning movements depicted on
Right.
the site plan so far.
And then finally, you describe a black metal fence proposed for the top of the retaining wall to separate the ski area from the new area. That's not typically what we see on the resort. It's usually a horizontal wood fence with wood posts. Why the change?
I think they were looking for something more substantial for grooming up against it. The other resorts don't meet the ski slope at quite this grade change. Again, the grade change is existing because of how the site is currently benched. So there's not a dangerous drop off on other resorts that are on Peak 8 or on Peak 7. The slope more gently meets the patio area, whereas this will be a retaining wall, a series of retaining walls actually with quite a bit of height difference. I think it was the steel mesh will allow for some more visibility between the two areas, so you wouldn't obstruct views as much, is why it was asked for or proposed rather. The development code under policy 47 does allow for steel fencing at the ski area. So staff didn't find it problematic, but we can certainly ask for a render of that prior to the
Usually a
next.
choice that the ski company is making, not the
The
developer.
the ski area has asked the applicant to include this fence. I think the applicant can speak more on the design choice if they have more information on them.
All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I have a couple of questions myself. And I apologize in advance. I'm going to get a little bit into the weeds on the SFEs. I understand that the totals come out fine, and are under the, density that was allowed. But, I did some calculations and maybe Sarah, you can, show me where I'm wrong if I am. So there's 127.6 SFEs for residential. And when I added up the townhomes, hotel and condominiums, I got 132.54, which would be in excess by almost 5 SFEs. Then I saw that for the common areas, support and circulation, there's 65 SFEs. There are 6, as Elaine pointed out, 6 additional SFEs being used for commercial. And then the overage between the 2 residential numbers of almost 5. And so the number that I came up with for these areas was 75.98, or roughly 76, which exceeds the 74.2 number that is what I understood is the fungible number that can be used for other purposes. So roughly 2 SFEs higher than the 74.2.
So the support and circulation SFEs, those could be for any use as well. When we removed policy for mass, that took away the bonus that they would get for hallways and support areas and things that didn't have density previously. So under the new code, those have to be assigned a use. For this, we allocated the use conversion rate of 1,200 square feet for condos for that circulation support area. So, but those may not be strictly residential uses. I think they could be put into some of the other categories. And I think maybe we need to step back and do the math on our own, and come back to you on that question. I'm
Okay.
not completely clear of the issue, but
Well, yeah, I mean, as I'm looking at it, they're over on the residential, they're over on the commercial. They're a little bit under on the guest services, but I wasn't sure whether that was a number that could be used for something else. And then they have this 74.2 SFEs that are flexible.
Yeah, I guess like the guest services, and we'd have to look through it, but guest services like has a very specific definition under the master plan. So
Yeah.
you have to look at that definition and attach it to what it is, like versus just saying this seems more like it's commercial, or this seems more, there's certain things under guest services that I don't know, I guess qualify as guest services, but maybe if you asked, like, does it seem more commercial or more guest services? Like really all the ski area, like anything office space for the ski area would be considered. Well, I guess I'd have to look at the definition, but there's a case when I did this calculation from the previous building. It was, I guess, kind of enlightening to see like how different things were put into different categories by the definitions contained in the master plan.
Okay. Well, I think, since we're gonna do another preliminary hearing on this, I'd appreciate a little more clarification on that. Thank you. Okay, on the space for BOEC, I'm very appreciative that BGV is allocating this space to BOEC, but I question the allocation of 4 points. It seems very high to me. And as far as I understand it, BOEC only operates in the winter? Is that, would they
No.
be using the space in the other months as well?
I think they would have full-time access to this location. And they do have summer programming as well.
Okay. Well, in any case, I'm just not clear on how you reach the 4 point.
Under that provision of the development code, it's a multiplier of 4. So 4 is the lowest amount that you could apply. And then it goes up to 8 from there. I think you could, I'm not sure if it exceeds 8.
Oh, I thought it was,
Yeah, the 8 is the highest, which is what the Soul Center previously got. But give a little background, I think, on why we supported positive 4 was really the existing like facilities for the BOEC to get disabled skiers to the lifts out of Peak 9. It is quite a trek and it's very hard. This gets you dedicated parking that's appropriately sized for the vehicles, a facility with elevator access that will take them directly to snow. And so in terms of like the ease for the type of clientele, it is a significant upgrade. It's much more than just the total of the 1,500 square feet. If you compared it to the existing space, it's down at the base of Peak 9. So at the previous iteration of this project, there were people that came and spoke up on behalf of the BOEC and kind of provided background of how really like valuable this space is and something that's really been high on their list of needs for years. And so really looking at this being the lowest portion or total of points, the +4, you know, I think there's been a fair bit of discussion of why it's worthy of getting positive points, and even so much to the fact that they wrote into the development agreement saying it is eligible for positive points, because I think most people thought it was eligible for points unless it was actually listed as a public benefit specifically, which then would make it not eligible for points. So it was very strategically written with the consent of the town council.
right,
in
and
that regard.
I'm not objecting to having positive points. I just didn't understand how we got to 4.
Mhm.
Okay, and the last question that I had, which has also come up, is about the employee mitigation. And the number of employees that would be generated for the whole ownership condos. It seems to me, you know, while I understand that BGB is using its experience at other sites, that having a condo right on the mountain, as this is going to be, there may be, it seemed speculative to me that they are positing that so few owners are going to want to rent. And if they rent, it's going to generate a need for more employees because there's going to be more turnover.
I think we could ask the applicant to supply additional information about their current properties and employment generation specifically for whole ownership condos. I will say that the rate that they proposed of 0.33 is higher than what our current Nexus study says is required for a hotel or condominium use per unit.
Okay, well, that's helpful to know. But maybe the applicant can speak to that. Okay, at this point, we would welcome the applicant.
Hello, everybody. Graham Frank from Breckenridge Grand Vacations, also Bill Campy from DTJ Design. Thank you for entertaining us for yet another meeting and yet another project, the most complex of the gamut, and Sarah knocked it out of the park again, so thank you. To the questions, I think the most important part, this building has been an evolution of multiple years and multiple plans and has landed here, which I think is a very good spot. It years of iterations. I think addressing the questions in terms of starting with stormwater runoff, which a few of you hit, and how we do it. The easiest answer is we have to meet the state standards, we have to meet the town standards, and our entire building package will be reviewed by the engineering department in detail. At this point, there's not active groundwater pumping, stormwater pumping stipulated. But until we have the final details on the hydrostatic wall, shoring wall, all of those things, we can't give it to Shannon yet and the engineering department. So as soon as we do that, it will go through that full review for both state discharge and Shannon. And in talking about the gulch, looking back at 10 years of reports, going back to Vail Resorts, One Ski Hill Place, all of those, we didn't have any resins of wax in the reports done by Tetra Tech or Catchline at the time. I don't know, Chris, if any new ones have come out with it, but it was not in there. Theoretically, if you're taking a surface sheeted parking lot right now without any real retention facilities that's running down the berm and across the road and into the gulch, everything should be an improvement in the past because we'll be slowing down the velocities, we'll be directing the velocities, and we'll have sumps along the way. So all of that, again, will be checked down by Shannon and her team, but that is the intention to preserve that asset. We obviously see it as a huge asset for the project and the selling features of the project, having Cucumber Gulch there. So on the next question, Mike, for sure, we could show you all of the ADA spaces, specifically the 6 for the BOEC, specific height, all ADA access to elevator. In addition to what's required by the building, we'll have all those striped and shown in the plans in the next iteration. On your question on the amenity club, so I actually sat on the original amenity club task force, so acutely aware of the requirements, but to your questions of what we are programming, yes, we are working through the program of all of those, but by no means trying to circumvent the amenity club program. So for example, that pink space on the first floor, when we open phase 1 of the building, that'll be the first lobby space. And as we move up through the building, that will then become the dedicated whole ownership lobby. So the experience will separate there to try to preserve the different guest experiences. Once the entire project is open, timeshare and hotel will be met by the valet on that level. We'll go up to that main lobby level where they'll do their check-in. Whereas we see our whole ownership guest being versed in the property, used to the property, they'll go into more of a lobby concierge experience, grab anything they need, or simply bypass it and directly up to their unit. But we liked that dedicated elevator stack comes down to there should they want to jump on the shuttle or go to the transit center to go to town. So that was the intention of those. Then as you move out into the building, the ideas we have now for those pink spaces are things like golf simulator, family fun center, a lot of the amenities that you see at our current resorts, just really trying to expand that convenience in the building, but by no means trying to be secretive about what's there. We just haven't decided the exact use in each exact space throughout, with technology changing and all of those things. One of the things we've seen at our project in Avon is this huge usage of these sports simulators where you can play this litany of games as well as multiple golf courses. So programming those in and where are we going to put them and then how are we going to govern use and those things. Those are some of the things we're working through programmatically right now. So we'll try to add as much meat on the bone for the next go around of meetings, but to your question on amenity club, by no means trying to go around that ordinance to get it.
That helps, and we look forward to more meat on the bone, as you
You
said.
bet.
Can you make sure your mic is on?
Sorry, I'm mumble plus bad mic or bad proximity to mic. Next one, siding, Mark, to discuss that a little bit more. In the past, as we've done the NFPA fire treated siding at 80 feet, we have not yet on any project found a product that doesn't leach over time. So what Bill's going to bring back to you is that natural component, but something that preserves the look and feel, we think, longevity versus 2 years into the project, you now have lost all of your natural wood look and you've painted it with Last America paint so that leaching stops. So that is what we will be bringing back to you to try to meet A, that building code standard, but B, the look and feel that we want in the design code is the intention of those materials that Bill's team will bring back, and Bill can talk about it in more detail. In terms of access, at this and the left turn lane, right now, what we're trying to do is define the exact number of cars that are going to be turning left per hour to understand if that left turn lane's needed. And we're going to actually do specific car counts at each of our projects on peak 7 and 8 over the next 2 weekends, so we can provide the exact data to Shannon to say, are we crossing that threshold on left turns per hour or not, to figure out if we have to design it in, because right now we're using the modeling standards that take, you know, not only urban projects, but mountain projects and generate these based on the usage in the building. So we thought that we'd be better off getting the exact counts, presenting them to Shannon, and then finding a solution that we think is viable for the project. So that's what's going on with the left turn lane. In terms of the metal, yep.
With regards to your comments on the siding,
Yes.
I can tell you I've got over 35 years experience with the Hardy cementuous product. And I've never had any callbacks with that. So
Okay, that's good feedback.
you should look at that, because I think that's a product that would work for you and would hold up long-term.
You get that, Mr. Campy? Okay. Thank you for the feedback. Metal fence. So we went back and forth with Vail Resorts on the metal fence. Obviously, this is a very critical area with 2 magic carpets directly above these retaining walls that come down into the site. So the barrier is very important in its ability to hold up every day when the snowcats groom to that concrete that it sits on, so that you step off directly onto the snow. And as you're doing that grooming, it pushes snow up on to that fence and barrier. So we wanted to be permeable enough that a lot of that snow is passing through, but also that we're not building up the snow fence effect that you see with like a literal Wyoming snow fence as you're traveling through trying to create that berming barrier. So we wanted it to be permeable for view from the site up to the ski resort and vice versa, but also ensure that it would be permanent enough for when the little guy is out of control and isn't stopping before he gets to that shoring wall and has that permanent barrier there. So that was the thinking and working with Vail Resorts and what we've proposed there. On BOEC, Susan, I don't usually do this. I would say from working with Tim Casey and Sonia and all of them that we should get +8 for this site, because they said it will change the face of the BOEC, right? Underground heated parking, direct access to an elevator, space on the snow at peak 8 that would, if you were selling it to a retailer, you'd be selling it at over $2,000 a square foot. This will be one of the most substantial gives to the BOEC that they've ever had. And so I think it is a huge give for that program and their year-round effect, because today's access is brutal on the instructors and the participants as they're getting carried in their sit ski, you know, up and back. This gives direct access to the snow, literally wheelchair to the snow, get into the skid ski, enjoy the day, out of the sit ski onto whatever device they're using. I shouldn't say wheelchair, whatever device they're using, and back down to the ADA accessible vans. We felt like this, and when Mike Dudek and Tim Casey originally discussed this 4.5 years ago, it was a point of enlightenment for the BOEC and their ability to provide, and something that we were pretty excited about. And then the last piece, Mike, on these devices. So these aren't just a small device. This is us putting in technology that hadn't been in place up here in terms of monitoring ramping snow melt. And it is so advanced that the EPA actually gave us an award for the use at our Peak 8 property, Granite, Colorado. So the EPA Region 8 P2 recognition award was given to Grand Colorado at Peak 8 for the use of these. So the EPA is a tremendous believer in the application and use of this technology. And it was really innovative how we started doing it so that you're getting the most effective ramp for a power to melt the snow right in advance of it hitting the ground, because the worst thing is it gets on the ground and then you're trying to ramp to a level to clean it. So this barometric pressure allows you to get ahead of the curve and also turn off at the moment it's melted and dry on the ground versus continuing to heat through a cold spell, even though the ground's dry, right? And so we think we're pretty proud of ourselves, candidly, on the use of the technology. And so it's not just a new, has been little device. It's something that's really effectuating change for us at Peak 8.
Can you
So
tell us what kind of sensors, does it use cameras or how does it?
it
detect
runs off
information?
barometric pressure and humidity. So you're sensing the storm coming in and the change in that curve combined with temperature. And then the humidity sensor is sensing what you have coming off of that ground. So once you have melted the snow in that area, your humidity sensor starts picking up zero and you ramp down that curve to stop the melting. So you're trying to get ahead of the storm and heat the ground before the snow falls, because melting it when it hits the ground is the most efficient way to do it versus buildup. And then it turns off as soon as that melt cycle has happened.
Okay, that's accurate enough, just barometric pressure?
Barometric pressure plus moisture and temperature, everything is
It doesn't
going.
use any weather forecasting?
Well, the barometric pressure is, as you start to see that drop in the barometric pressure, your storm is imminent.
Yeah,
And that is when you start seeing it.
okay.
I'm sure I butchered how they use the technology, but that's my layman's term for how they do it. It's in our staff letter, but you can actually see how many therms of gas that we've actually saved at Grand Colorado. I mean, it's a huge number for the system. If you guys want more
They
information.
said like almost 20%.
Thanks, Graham.
Bill, what did I miss? You want to talk about materials?
I got a couple-
Employee
I
generation.
have a
Sorry.
couple more questions if you don't mind.
You bet. And on employee generation, the reason we're asking for the reduction is for accuracy the next time we come in for something, right? We're not asking to build less housing. Everybody understands that. We're asking for the recognition of what the building's actually using and generating, so that the next time we come in, we don't face the answer of, well, we just went with the code last time. Right, we want to accurately represent each of these buildings as we come in and come through. It's not in the desire to reduce the number of units we're building. We're committing to that and building Entrada. And so that is all we're trying to do, is accurately represent what's happening in the building. And Susan, you asked a question, so that's the data. So at Peak Granite Lodge on Peak 7, we have both whole ownership condos and we have timeshare. Grand Colorado Peak 8 timeshare. In Avon, we have total buildings of whole ownership. And that's what you're seeing in all of the data going into this. For example, our most recent project in Avon, that's 75 condos, would be less than half of the 0.33 FTE per unit as it's operating today with occupancy and a high rental rate. It's just, we want to get accurate in how we're representing our buildings.
But the Avon property is not ski property. I mean, it's not ski front property.
Correct. It's at the base of Beaver Creek, right at the gates of Beaver Creek.
Oh, okay.
So. Mark,
Commissioners have questions for the applicant? Or,
I think Mark had more.
yeah, and I think Alan had. Alan, did you have questions for the applicant?
Just one, just point of curiosity. What's Vail Resorts going to do for a Peak 8 and locker room for the ski school?
What are they gonna do for them in terms of the relocation?
Where is it going to be? Because there doesn't seem to be space in this property for that.
So they'll be relocating those uses to space they have in both One Ski Hill Place and in Crystal Peak Lodge. And then
Okay.
to the question of temporary space, yes, we'll be putting temporary trailers on the site for both storage and office during construction.
Okay, great, thanks. That's
Mark?
all I have.
Couple questions. There's a phase line on the drawings. Is the building gonna be built in two phases? What's the phase line about?
One continuous phase through the superstructure, but occupying in phase as we've always done coming up through the building. So isolating it across the building, is the idea. And the other thing, Mark, we would build, the notion is to get CO on all of those parking phases in the first, but half of those spaces beyond the phase line would be used for construction parking, because we all know the limitations, especially at peak 8.
Makes sense. The 9 townhomes, are they fee simple or are they condominium?
These, both the uphill chalets and the downhill townhomes are all fee simple.
And if you could just elaborate for the panel, a little bit of what the difference is between the fractional units and the condominiums, so that people understand, A, how they will likely be used by the owners and the impact of renting or not renting, from your experience of what you already have. I think that would help everybody to understand what we're looking at.
Absolutely. So our fractional units are sold in 1/52nd fractions. So deeded interest, 1 week fractions. And they range across unit sizes depending on lock off, suite, those sorts of things. Very high utilization, A, for ownership. B, owners can rent their unit if they wanted to for their week. And then that, those stays are very highly used. They run at a very high occupancy. Whole ownership, we on average across all of our projects see about 40% of our owners participating in the rental pool. And our owners that purchase units that are more than $5 million, that drops precipitously. And we see their use pattern about 4 weeks a year, in the $5 million and plus range. All of the owners will participate in the property management for the HOA, but you can rent through whoever you want. You're not limited. You can rent, you could Airbnb it, you could rent it through, VRBO, any channel, any management company out there. So we don't limit that. But for continuity across the project, we limit the property management. A, safety, B, use of the facility, all of those things. And so all owners will check in on site, all renters will check in on site, and that'll be the utilization throughout the building. And then lastly, the hotel product, we see, running consistent with the STAR report at a 56 to 66% annual occupancy, if it's following the industry standards and the hotels that we follow in the so those would be the use patterns that we would see across, or expect to see across the project.
Really speak to the townhouses though, how,
This is being that whole ownership product that is in that high-end range, $5 million
for
plus.
5 weeks used.
Correct.
So would be renting them out the rest of the time?
No, the owner would make that decision. A lot of those people in the $5 million plus range, we see literally the unit lays fallow, if you will, and unoccupied and unused when they are not there.
Thank you. That's good information.
Any other questions?
Mike, did you have anything?
I don't.
Matt? No. Okay.
Thank you.
At this point, we'll open this up for the public hearing. Is there anyone here who wishes to comment?
Hi, my name's Bill Anderson. I'm not sure how many of you were on the committee last time we went through this, but I own basically the whole east side of that on 4 o'clock subdivision. Last time around, I had my remedial drawing of all the whole neighborhood kind of funnels through our property out into the ski hill. And it looks like we've got the same situation, and I appreciate them having the access. I would love to see a little more detail on how it's all going to work. Most of the people ski in from above to their houses, and then walk out or ski out through the lower level. So you don't have skiers racing through below the magic carpet and just the traffic flow. But I think you were involved before. So we've talked, so I appreciate that all going on. The one thing I haven't seen anything, and it's a personal thing, we're losing most of our view, which I get. I mean, it's a big building, but you've got that huge peak on the other side that they're basing everything off of. And I would just love to see some drawings, so at least we have some view of the mountain. And last time we did have a peephole, so we were going to see part of the mountain still. We kind of lost all of peak 7 and 6. I mean, I'm not against the development. I think it's going to be great. I don't expect to get my whole view, but I'm just hoping we can at least see some sort of I mean, we had actually view easements on most of the drawings last time, so at least there was a peekaboo for Jane Hamilton above and myself, so we can at least have our view that we've always had in some element of it. So, but I think that's the main, let's see if I have anything else, but yeah, and then you already hit it on it, but I mean, it's going to be hard, and I don't think we're expecting great things, but if we can have some sort of access to the mountain during the construction, for the most part, I mean, again, we're here quite a bit, but we do run some, and the whole neighborhood does the same thing. So I don't think they're going to be able to keep that thing open the whole time, but obviously peak season, if we can have better access, then that would be very helpful. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
So if there's anyone online, please raise your hand with the icon at the bottom of your screen, or if you're attending the meeting by phone, press *9 and then *6 to unmute yourself. Is there anyone?
I do not see any hands raised online, although there are several attendants, so I'll give them one going once, going twice. No public comments online.
Thanks, Sarah. So that will close the public portion of the hearing. Let's turn to planning commissioner comments. Alan, do you want to comment on the questions?
Sure. Thanks, and thanks to the BGV team for being thorough and providing great information. I think it's as everyone says, complex project, and this is an excellent first go round. Question 1 on the PMA, yes. Question 2, architecture, yes. 3, employee generation, yes, particularly since our new code puts you under, you're over the requirement for the new code. 4, BOEC, yes. And just to address my fellow commissioners' concerns, I teach part-time out of the village, and I see every day what they go through, BOEC goes through to get people up the mountain. There's a steep hill, and it's also just the it's kind of what's the I'm missing the word, but just for the dignity of that several people that need physical help getting up, I think being able to go directly out is a huge benefit. So I thank BGV for that. Monitoring system, a conditional yes, based upon what our sustainability department says. Point analysis, yes, and no other questions or comments.
Thank you, Ellen. Elaine?
Okay, so as far as the drainage improvements, I agree that we should grant a variance. I'd like to see more details on it. I agree with the architectural, number 2. Also agree with the employee generation rates and BOEC, 4 points. So I agree with everything. Does commission agree with +4 for the heated paving? Yes. And agree with the preliminary point analysis. And no further comments, other than it looks like a really great project. Thank you for all your hard work. Excited to check it out.
Matt?
Yeah, going down through again, yes for the PMA variance. Yes for the architectural compatibility. Yes for the generation rates. Agree with the staff recommendation of not allowing the 0 for the market. Big yes on the BOEC space. Yes on the heated paving weather station. Yeah, I think looks like a great project. Thanks.
Pointed out.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Mike?
Very nice project. The first one, yes. Second one, architectural compatibility, a big thumbs up, Bill. This is much better than the Roland Broughton design we saw 4 years ago. It's way more compatible with the balance of the development. So thank you. I do concur with staff and note the exception on the workforce count and the market. BOEC access, yes, and thank you for that. That's an important part of our community and inclusion. The heat monitoring system, a very strong no. It's a sensor in a control box. Building automation is a mature industry. I deal with it all the time in my work. I think it's great that you did it. I appreciate that you got an award, but let me put some metrics on this. 4 points is equal to the entire underground parking. This is nowhere near that. 4 points is equal to the BOEC 50-year lease, and this isn't nearly as significant as public good as that. 4 points is equal to the year-round electrical shuttle, and this doesn't rise to that level. 4 points on a commercial building is 30 to 39% HERS improvement on the overall energy use, and this is nowhere near that. So I'm not trying to be difficult, but I'm trying to put some perspective on this new technology or existing technology in a new application. So a strong no that we shouldn't give 4 positive points for that. And then final, any other comments? My previously noted, thank you for placing some accessible parking adjacent to BOEC. It's a great project. Thanks.
Mark?
Compliment you on what looks like a very nice project. Look forward to the next time around. With regards to the questions for the commission. Number 1, I say yes for the drainage improvements. Does the commission agree with the staff's assessment that the architecture meets the style? Yes. Does the commission agree with the adaptation of the applicant's proposed employee generation? Yes. Does the commission agree with the BOEC free access? Yes. Does the commission agree with the positive 4 points? I too think the 4 points is a little excessive. I think that you're going to get an economic benefit from putting this in. So you will likely do it regardless of whether or not you get 4 points. So I would say no for that. And then number 6, I don't agree with the point analysis. And specifically, I don't agree with the 9 points for the heated paving. Under 33 are, we have the option, and it reads, if the planning commission determines that any of the following design features are required for health, safety, and welfare of the general public, i.e. IG, heated sidewalks in a high traffic pedestrian area, then no negative points shall be assessed. And I think that the reason that that's in the code is so that we as a panel have the opportunity to interject a little bit of common sense into this whole equation of sustainability. When we look at the over 5,000 square feet, and we take a building that has 400,000 square feet, has literally hundreds of people that are going to be accessing it on any given day, and we compare that to a guy that builds a custom house and wants to have a huge driveway with snow melt, they're 2 entirely different things. And I think it's appropriate to penalize the person who's going to have the snow melt, that 1 or 2 people are going to be impacted by maybe 4 or 5 weeks of the year. And it's a whole nother thing where you're going to have people accessing this. I think that we should allow the snow melt without any points. That's my opinion.
I do want to clarify the code, for residential snow melt. Applicants are penalized with greater than 1,000 square feet of snow melt. And for commercial properties such as this, they're only penalized after 5,000 square feet. So there is a difference in the application, but your point is taken.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, I agree that the variance for the PMA should be granted. I agree that the proposed architecture meets the style requirements of the master plan. I agree with pending further information on the applicant's proposed employee generation rates. On question 4, I don't think that we're giving the BOEs, I don't think we're giving the applicant 4 points because the BOEC is providing free access to the outdoor pools and aquatic areas. I think it's.
That omitted, it is the whole area.
Yeah.
Sorry, that sentence was a
Okay,
mistake.
yes, and I agree. I think that Mike and Mark make some interesting points about the weather monitoring system, but I'm okay with the 4 points for that. And so I agree with the preliminary point analysis. So at this point, we don't need a motion, right?
Nope, we'll come back. I guess they'll come back in the future for a second preliminary hearing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think this is a great project and really appreciate all the information.
Bring us back some material samples next time.
For a different project.
Maybe a joke.
Easy for you guys. Dang, it's been a lot of time looking at this.
Job, Sarah.
Do it over several days.
I went through it really quick one day and then I was like.
The next item on our agenda is the driving range netting EM 200 Clubhouse Drive PL-2024-0505. Ellie?
We're getting there.
Yes, give me 1 second, sorry. Oh, do we know? Okay. There we go. Alrighty. Before you tonight is the town project for the driving range netting. Which if you're not familiar, this is the driving range. It's located pretty centrally within the Breckenridge Golf Course. You can see the clubhouse is right here, and then the driving range is here, and the golf course extends in pretty much all directions. So the proposal is to install fencing along the east side of the driving range, and then also the north side of the driving range. So you can see that here. So the east section, which is right here, will be 30 feet tall and 600 feet long. And then the north section, which is over here, will be 20 feet tall and 125 feet long. For some background, to the north side of the driving range is the golf course maintenance building here. And then also a field of solar panels. And then on the east side of the driving range is a pretty central cart path, as well as the hole 1 for the elk course. So on average, golf course staff have seen 10 to 15 stray balls a day be hit over to the east side of the driving range, which causes potential safety issues for those playing on this green here and those passing by on the cart path. And then additionally, when the practice tees for the driving range here are pushed forward as part of the tee rotation, more balls end up being hit towards the far end of the driving range and have caused issues with the maintenance building, parked cars, and adjacent solar panels, which have resulted in 8 solar panels, 1 car window, and 1 building window being broken in the past 2 years. This also presents a hazard for any employees that are working back in this area for potential stray balls. So staff evaluated the proposed netting against policy 20R for recreation facilities and found that this is a safety related improvement to an existing facility and is not increasing the recreational opportunities. So staff does not recommend any positive points. And then the proposed netting would be considered a fence. So staff evaluated it against policy 47A, which does allow fencing for other outdoor recreation areas and specifies that it shall be black. The proposed netting will be a black nylon rope material and the poles themselves will be a matte black color. So staff found that the proposed netting meets policy 47 and does not have any concerns. You can see an example of the height shown here, which I understand is not super indicative of the actual height with this view. So we also included an example photo in the staff report of a 40-foot tall netting system, which the tallest height that this netting system is proposed will be 30 feet. So it will be shorter than this example photo. And staff finds that the project meets all absolute policies and would be awarded no negative points. And staff recommends the Planning Commission recommend approval to the Town Council.
Thank you, Ellie. Is Alan still here?
Oh,
We lose him.
it looks like Alan is still here. Let me see if I can pin.
I'm still here.
Okay.
There we
Alan,
go.
do you have any questions for Ellie?
Yes, what, any issues of the netting having snow build up, and could that be an issue, or will the netting be taken down in the winter season?
I am not sure. That is not something that I have talked to our recreation department about, but I can check with them and make sure that information is included in what's brought to town council.
Okay, great. I think that's it. Thanks. I think it's a great project, and yeah, it's always hard to find my ball when I play that first hole of elk when there's all those other range balls. So, great project.
Really?
Question about the actual code, because 47A does not talk about netting. It talks about, let me read it. It talks about black or dark green coated chain link fencing, steel or aluminum or wood. Amend this to include netting for golf courses.
I think precedent wise, we have similar netting, yet we've, I guess, made the interpretation qualifies at the rec center. Like the softball field that's directly adjacent to kind of the aquatic center. We've used this type of netting for probably since the rec center opened. And so I think that we made the interpretation, although maybe a little loosely, that it qualified, under this recreation section. I can't imagine there'll be a lot more of these type of
Yeah.
netting, whether it be softball or golf or anything else, but I think we can make the argument off precedent, we have allowed it in the past.
I guess my concern is that now people might think that they can just use netting for fencing and
Yeah, I mean, I think there has to be a clear nexus to
might be
why
something to look into eventually.
that's needed for like a recreation, type, where that's why we're giving it the exemption here.
Sure.
Or
This-
or recommending the exemption, I should say.
So do they leave the baseball netting up in the winter?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think so.
They
I
put
mean,
us up
in
there.
terms of the maintenance, I think they'll probably evaluate it. You know, Grant, who's the director of golf operations now, he's working year round. He works, you know, with the Nordic Center, and there's such a high level of maintenance in general at the golf course. I think if they determine that they should take it down in the winter, although it's probably a big job, it's probably a small job in the grand scheme of things of what they do to get the course ready, you know, every winter in anticipation for
Work
it to
so
be
hard out
playable.
there. I live right there, so I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that was my only question, just on the like technicality of the wording.
Yeah, I think you're reading the letter of the law.
Yeah.
correctly. I think we're going off of some precedent and kind of where it falls within policy 47.
Okay, that's all I have.
Any questions?
I have no questions.
Mike,
No questions. Thank you.
Mark?
No questions, all pretty clear to me.
Okay, and I have no questions. Do we have an applicant here?
No.
Great. In that case, I'll open this for public hearing. If there's anyone online, please raise your hand with the icon at the bottom of your screen, or press *9 if you are attending the meeting by phone, and then *6 to unmute yourself. Is there anybody?
No one that wishes to comment.
Thank you. Okay,
Did you wish to
Min-
comment, sir?
Public.
Yeah, I'm not online, so I'm here now.
okay, good. Thank you.
My name's John Jumanville. I just want to clarify, there was something in the writing where there's a 2024 date, like this was already a done deal. Is that not the case? If you look at some of the installments on the.
Yeah, probably the PL number, since the application was made in 2024, it has a 2024 project date. But this is the hearing, and then actually the subsequent hearing by the town council is when it's reviewed.
I just want to clarify, my comments aren't moved. I might change my what I might say. My name's John Jumanville. I live at 411 Long Ridge Drive. It's in the Highlands. I am on the ridge that overlooks the golf course on Elk 2, just on that northeast side. I bought my lot in 2003, built my house in 2012. So I've seen the golf course for many years, looked down on it. It's beautiful, right? I wanted to say that when I look down, it's the reason I live in Breck, perhaps the reason we all live in Breck. Breck is beautiful. Nets are ugly. I haven't heard anybody comment about just the beautification of the whole valley that surrounds the golf course, the beautification of the golf course. It's the reason we go there. I think and for the entire time I've looked down there, the driving range has been oriented along Elk for 20 years. I'm aware of stray golf balls. Anybody that plays golf anywhere, and I'm a resident golfer, is used to driving ranges near holes. It's a hazard. It's been like this for 20 years, so I'm not sure. That's one problem perhaps you're trying to solve, but it's been like this for 20 years. So I'm opposed against constructing the nets. I believe it will negatively impact the appearance, negative impact the appeal. It will overall impair, I think, the enjoyment of the course. I'm on the range plenty of times. People come from all over the world. I've been on the range when they walked up and looked at the range and they see open space and just, this will impact that experience. There's already one albatross that's in the valley, and it's not a field of solar panels. It's a monolith of a solar panel. And it's built too big to mitigate and to camouflage its appearance. When you're around, you see it. I think it impacts the beautification, the beauty of the valley. I don't want to see another albatross in the netting. The only albatross I might like to see as a golfer is on elk number 2. That would be me hitting the second shot. I respect the need for safety. I appreciate the workers. I see them at 6 o'clock in summer mornings, working their tails off, and respect their need to do their work. by the way, this last summer, the course was in outstanding condition, so they did a fantastic job. So I very much appreciate what they do. I am interested, though, in not just do we meet fencing or netting. I sense I'm not an attorney, but I saw a sense that's a little different. I'm not gonna get there. I also know netting next to parking lots, protecting foul softballs versus the beauty of the valley and the golf course, I think are two different things, might be viewed differently. I would be interested if there is netting, what might be done to mitigate that. I'd be interested in who proposed perhaps alternatives. A few more trees on the east side along the Elk number 1 might solve a bunch of those golf balls that just might be stray over there. I rarely see many down in the fairway. If you're on the left of the cart path, which is a bad shot, yes. And if I'm over there, I'm looking at the range as a prudent golfer might do. That's been like that for 20 years. The distance down to the solar array, I don't know what you might do for solutions, but again, I'd be curious in what might have been looked at as alternatives as opposed to man-made ugly netting, additional trees. If the solar panels are particularly an issue, is there something to cover or get right next to the solar panel so you're not breaking the panel? I'd love for you to move it. But anyway, I get it. And so yes, the distance of balls. There's also such thing as a low trajectory, a low flight ball that might solve a lot of problems for distance. I don't know if that's been looked at. Anyway, I think Breck's beautiful, like to keep it that way. I know you have a hard job. You're balancing competing beautification with the reality of we want to live and work here and we love the services. The golf course in the valley is a spectacular asset. It's beautiful. People come from all over the world. I've seen them ooh and ah on the driving range. Love for it to maintain that. Nets are ugly. There's a reason Topgolf is next to interstate right-of-ways, not in the middle of the valley. Driving down Vale Valley, beautiful. My eyes are focused on the road, but I will get diverted to the beauty. But then you know what you see? You see the nets for their driving range. They have no choice. They're right in the middle. But you see it. It's ugly. It takes away from the view. I would rather it not take away from our beautiful asset. Let's look at alternatives. Let's look at a way to mitigate camouflage if you have to do it. So that's speak my piece. Thank you for letting me speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do we have a motion?
Don't we have commissioner comments after?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Roomy.
Alan, do you have any further comments?
No, I don't.
Elaine?
I just want to say, John, I feel your pain. I live right there, but my son works the golf course and they're out there walking around. And that's tucked away, right? Yeah, appreciate your comments though. That's all I have.
Matt?
And it's always a trade-off between safety and something else. So I appreciate your comments on that, and that's all I have.
Mike?
I agree with Matt and I appreciate John's input.
Mark?
John, I appreciate your input. I wish there was a better solution. I don't know what that solution is and whether or not the town council would or has considered other alternatives. We're hearing about this for the first time, so.
How about an anti-missile system that intercepts them?
Proposal for they said let's.
Could you? Yeah.
You know what? At this point, we're done with public input. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I agree with my fellow commissioners. We appreciate your input. Thank you.
All right, I move that the planning commission recommend to the town council to approve the driving range Netting Town Project PL 2024-0505, located at 200 Clubhouse Drive, along with attached findings and conditions of approval.
There a second?
I'll second it.
All right, roll call. Ms. Gort. Ms. Proper.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Lees.
Yes.
Mr. Fruchter.
Yes.
Mr. Geller.
Yes?
All right, the motion passes 6-0.
And for Mr. Jumerville's information, this will be going to the town council next Tuesday night for a public hearing as well. So you're more than welcome to participate in that as well. And there'll be an opportunity for public comment.
Okay, I think the next item on the agenda is the town council summary.
Thanks, Susan. Okay, boy, it's been a long time. It's a nice break. So I'm going back to a meeting from, what was it, council, December 10th, so almost a month. On a couple things. They did get a presentation from Speaker McCluskey and Senator Roberts. So they got to talk to them for a while, and they highlighted some of the state legislatures' issues this year, focusing on high priorities of education, housing, and childcare, and also a serious shortage, I think a $1 billion deficit that they're having to address. So, so that was appreciated, having the legislators here to speak with the council. In terms of planning items, we did bring to them the workforce building height issue. Remember, you guys got to take a look at that earlier in the fall. And in terms of an exemption for employee housing, the council was not supportive of that. Primary reason was they felt that the process was working well the way it is right now. And that because negative points are assigned, we're getting more concessions from the developer, so to speak. So for example, because they asked specifically about provides an example of like Highlands Riverfront, which was a recent project that just went through. And some of the positive points some of the benefits that came out of that project were there was a paved connection to the rec path. They got positive 3 points. And then the applicants chose to go all electric on their construction, which got them positive 4 points. The council saw those as examples of if we didn't have the negative points associated with going higher, we might not have got these things out of the projects because it wouldn't have been needed to overcome the point analysis. So end of the day, they understood there was a little difference between, you got a single family residence that can go 35 feet by right per our code, but you go 35 feet and a multifamily, you're going to get negative points. I think Jay brought up the point of typically multifamily, there's a lot more massing involved in a single family home. And so there was just it was pretty much a consensus from the council that they think the point system's working the way it is right now. So, they appreciated the commission's suggestions. They understood why we were making those recommendations, but end of the day, they did not support changing that analysis. So in terms of the points or waiving them, so to speak. So
Kind of a relative versus absolute. It's interesting because a lot of what you read with respect to making housing more affordable, viable, is to lighten up on some of the criteria requirements. But
yeah,
I see their point.
Yeah. And I, tried to point that out. But they just felt like It's kind of explained at the beginning. To find ways to incentivize this, right? And,
If you're going to do that,
Yeah.
provide some commensurate good.
yeah.
Okay.
So they did say, they talked about some projects like say City Market where there's still density on the table over there. There's, and there could be some housing associated with that. They felt that in all likelihood, it's going to be a development agreement for that complex or redevelopment project. And that in that case, there's going to be give and take like that can be provided in the development agreement. So it's not saying they wouldn't provide some of that flexibility on a site-specific basis, but anyway.
Unfortunate that they take that perspective because everything you read in housing internationally as well as nationally says that in order to get things more affordable, we have to increase density. We don't have the luxury of increasing density by going horizontal here in Breckenridge. So it leaves us the one option of getting a little bit more horizontal density. And when people want to look short-term at getting points to get amenities versus increasing density, I think we shoot ourselves in the foot. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, for that. Staff and commission, we've talked about this and there's two sides to the story. So, in terms of ways to look at it. So, and then Julia brought employee generation back again for discussion, which will be continued, but she made some progress. The council agreed, make sure I get the right ones here. Council agreed to, in terms of allowing offsite mitigation where if you're building something, you can do your employee mitigation in another site. They still feel that's acceptable to allow that, but staff's going to come back with some more discussion about that in terms of, like Dick suggested, but maybe there's positive points if you provide it on site. And, but there is also recognition in some cases, maybe it's not appropriate to provide the housing on site and it might be better in another location. So kind of situational that way. So they're going to come back with some more discussions to talk about that a little more, but they're generally in favor of still allowing for offsite mitigation, fee in lieu, that, payment instead of actually providing the housing. Right now, we allow payment fee in lieu for one employee or less. And if you're generating that much in terms of employees, but they're feeling we could loosen that up. And they threw out the number of maybe 5 employees, up to 5 employees, you could just pay into a fee in lieu, with the idea being it's a smaller, the smaller developments that are going to generate those smaller number of employees. And so maybe paying that into the housing, fund would be a better solution than having the small guy trying to provide housing somewhere, whereas the bigger developers can afford to do it themselves and are more capable of that. So anyway, the 5 is just a number that was thrown out. They've asked staff to come back and talk about that a little more. We talked about small businesses and incentives for the small businesses. And instead of exempting small businesses from the employee mitigation requirements, the council wants to look at other options. And one of the things that got thrown out is taking a look at the parking fees, the parking service area. So right now, as you may remember, if you're downtown within the parking which is a core of downtown, if it's a commercial use, you can pay into the service area and not provide parking. And so one of the questions is do we loosen up those requirements? We've got a fair amount of parking downtown right now. And do we need to really be building more parking? Do we need to be collecting money from businesses for that? One of the issues with that is going to be previous businesses did have to pay into it. into the parking service area, so. But they do want to explore that a little more and other incentives that we can be providing for small businesses. And then finally, it came up earlier this evening, but challenging the employee generation numbers themselves, how the code right now, still the way the code's written right now, you can make a challenge based on those numbers. And the question is, do we want to maintain that the way it's written? Because there had been suggestions from council. Well, now we got more defined numbers. Maybe we don't even provide that option, but the council feels we should still provide it, but they want to make it specific that we have to get an independent third-party analysis, require that study. If you remember, I mean, we didn't really have that when we got, when Highside Brewery came in, they provided the information themselves. And, you guys evaluated and said, yeah, this seems to make sense. Council wants to tighten that down a little bit and make it more, we need some kind of professional analysis of empirical. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of where they left off. So they're making some progress, and Julie has done a great job taking that whole project through. And it's, we're getting closer on that. There was also a discussion on the runway development, which is block 11, the remaining block 11 area. And the council agreed to go with the concept that had the higher amount of units, 148 units. And it's a mix of single family, duplexes, some townhomes mixed in. It's a pretty good design. We think we've been working on it for many months now with Suzanne Al Guerra's team. And anyway, that's making good progress. And council kind of said, yeah, let's go forward with this plan. There's been a plan developed. It's in the packet from that council meeting on December 10th, if you want to see it, or you can get a hold of, me and I can share it with you. But anyway, that's something that we're going to getting some more detailed work done now, including some plans that are being worked on so that we can come up with some much better cost estimating on all that. So we can bring that back to council probably the end of February for more on that. So, yeah, and that's the update.
Anything else?
Oh, I just wanted to say, Susan, nice job. Your first time in the saddle there.
Thanks for Mike who helped me.
Lucky man there.
Yeah, all right. Well, it's 8:05. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
What's going on at DNR Kennels? What's happening?
It's